Hello, my name is Jessica Plowman. This is my video for our curriculum audit presentation. So going through the slides, this is our overview. Our main question was just the curriculum that we have meet all of the state standards for English language arts. And we did this because, as a teacher, we're expected to teach all state standards they're required. So clearly, it's very helpful if the curriculum is going to meet those necessary standards.
Some background information about why this question is important to me, Kimberly, is because being a first grade teacher who teaches children to read, choosing a curriculum that meets all of those expectations is of the utmost importance. As teachers, we don't have a lot of time to be supplementing materials, and it seems as though a lot of times with district mandated curriculum, that's what we're having to do. And that doesn't lead for equity across all classrooms, where I may be pulling some research-based materials, another teacher may just be pulling some worksheets to fill in those gaps and things like that. So it's important for us to be using curriculums that are all encompassing all standards and that keep all classrooms on the same playing field.
Some background information about me, or some background information about the standards and why I think that's important, because I feel like I need the curriculum to fully support it, especially if we're going to be required to use it. And obviously, this creates cohesiveness among grade levels, and not one classroom is more advantageous than the other based on the same curriculum. So I feel like that's going to give kids the best chance of equity. The literature review for each, this is just going through each of the articles that were chosen. Clearly, instructional time, resources, especially if you're a newer teacher, the lack of content knowledge, and I feel like it takes you a while to kind of pick up on those things. The more experience you have, you kind of get a little bit more used to that and how to teach certain things, use certain strategies. Article 2, teachers need to be able to have input. I do feel like our district does an okay job of getting teacher input. They don't clearly just leave us out, but a lot of times our reading coach will ask our opinion and kind of take our opinion to the district level. So I do feel like our district currently, teachers get some kind of input, not all of them, but some of them. Article 3, students are often ignored so the teacher can continue with the scripted curriculum. I do feel like that is an issue that has been had, especially with our Amplify curriculum, because there's so much content and there's so many things to say that a lot of times you're so worried about if you're saying it right or you're doing it correct, instead of whether the kids are understanding the skill or the concept. So even last year in CKLA, we had to realize okay, what are we trying to teach the kids here? Let's focus on that, not just worried about am I going to read something off of a script. Article 4, teachers feel undervalued and unappreciated because they don't get the voice in the curriculum. We are a rural school. I do feel like we are prepared with curriculum and standards. I don't feel like that's an issue that we do have. So moving on to 6. That doesn't seem the case with curriculum companies. Okay, yes. State assessment are often not aligned with classroom instruction and materials. I do feel like that's the case sometimes. I do feel like that's a little bit better with CKLA in third grade land. Maybe not in other grade levels, but I do feel like the curriculum matches the state assessment pretty well. I'm going to go to my next part.
Through our literature research, our conclusions were that most teachers are opposed to curriculum choices that districts implement, and that not all curriculums chosen meet the state standards proficiently. And many teachers have shown and expressed this. to their current school district. Some criticism that we have is that teachers should have input on district mandated curriculum, as we're the ones delivering it every year, and we're the ones that should be most familiar with those standards and what it looks like being taught. Districts should also better research the curriculums they're choosing if they are going to mandate it fully. Some interpretations that we gathered through the literature was that the amount of research studies done, this seems to be an issue going on throughout the nation, not just in certain states like Alabama. Many of these research studies happened in various different states all over the nation. When looking at the class demographics, my demographics are first grade Jefferson County school system, UW Clement Elementary School. We use Amplify CKLA, as do Jessica and Emily. The demographics for all three of our schools were Title I low income areas. However, mine was a little different, as my school is predominantly African American, and those that are not are generally Hispanic students.
This is my demographics. I work at Westwood. It's a Title I school, Tuscaloosa County, and we use Reading Amplify or CKLA to teach readings ELA standards. This is the audit process.
Our audit process started with just a few steps. Our first step was to compare Alabama's ELA standards to the standards taught through our school's curriculum. And both of our schools use Amplify CKLA to teach reading for our grades. So I am a first grade teacher, so I looked at the first grade ELA standards and what was taught through Amplify. And Jessica and Emily are both third grade teachers who took the third grade curriculum and the third grade standards. Once we looked at the curriculum and the standards, we created a document that contained all of the ELA standards. That was our step 2. Our step 3 was making that including in that document 3 columns: standards that are taught, standards that are not taught, and standards that are not fully taught. So they may be touched upon, but not quite explicit, or not even a half lesson to dedicate to that one standard. We then sorted those standards into each column for each of our grade levels. Once we completed step 3 of making our columns and entering all of the information, the standards of if they're taught through the curriculum, if they're not, or if they're just kind of halfway, we then got together to research and see, does it really meet all of the schools or states' guidelines?
Standard graph here. So this is my third grade curriculum data. So on this side, it's all the standards, ELA standards that are taught for Amplify. And you can clearly see on this slide and the next slide, it continues to go on. So it does cover a lot of our standards. The only frustrating part is that there's some in the middle that are not taught at all, which is poetry and drama, which is a huge one for third graders, because you're going to get that figurative language piece in there, which they have figurative language in the curriculum, but it's just like a hint of it. So that's also why it's not explicitly taught section over here. There are some grammar things that are not taught. And then the paragraph one about the writing is not explicitly taught. So those are a few. I think the poetry one is a big one, though. The one all the way on the right side is not explicitly taught. A lot of those things are phonemic awareness, phonics skills that we have to pick up and supplement with BrainSpring and Heggerty, which is a phonemic awareness program that our school has. So unfortunately, since the curriculum does not cover all those standards, us as teachers have to supplement to go find something else, which also takes away from funding. So now you're buying multiple things instead of being able to use that for a different purpose, which is also a frustrating thing about curriculum.
When looking at the ELA standards for first grade and CKLA's implementation of those standards, I found that there were 54 standards that were taught through CKLA, 23 standards not taught at all, and 39 standards that were not fully or explicitly taught. As first grade is a year for learning how to read and learning different letter sounds, letter combinations, things like that. It's very important for the curriculum, especially in kindergarten and first grade, those foundational years, to encompass all of the standards that they're expected to know. It's a pretty big problem in our younger grades that we often have to supplement different resources and different pieces from different curriculums that have worked in the past due to the district mandating curriculum that, as we can see, has not explicitly taught over 50 standards to our first graders, and in essence is setting them up for failure as they get into these older grades and are not knowing what they are expected to know.
Okay. The conclusions, the importance of this is that the curriculum should possess all pieces of state standard, especially if teachers are required to use it. And also in our curriculum, like we need to pique interest of kids um, through learning through rich content. I'm sorry, through rich content. And then summary, allow teachers a voice in choosing the curriculum. Districts need to choose curriculum that allows all standards to be taught. In my case, that's going to build on that background knowledge that some student or a lot of my students need, but they don't come to school having already, and which in over time is going to help them be a better reader. And then closing is Amplify covers most of the state standards that are required, but then teachers still have to supplement for standards that are covered in third grade, mostly phonemic awareness phonics standards. And our big comprehension one is poetry. Thank you.
After completing this curriculum audit, some recommendations that we have through the literature review would be that teachers need to have an input on the curriculum choice. Through the actual audit, some recommendations we have is that our districts should not get to choose curriculums that don't meet all the state standards, so possibly them doing more research or having teachers come in and look for each of the standards in a specific curriculum that we're going to be implementing. And some another examples that we can give is maybe not using one curriculum for each subject area as a whole. Like ELA breaks down into specific sub-subjects. So for phonics, we might use a program like Phonics First that strictly makes sure they teach the phonics subjects. And we might use Hegarty for phonemic awareness that just focuses on that one subset of the curriculum. And that might be an easier way to hold curriculum companies accountable if they're only looking at one subset of standards that they're supposed to be incorporating into their standards.